So tonight we are here with Christine Wilson, and she does the Friday yoga at noon for us through Breast Friends, which if you're not doing that, you might want to check it out. It's a great resource and it's totally free. You can register through our calendar on our website. And she is a trained yoga instructor, but also a yoga therapist, which is something I had never heard of until I met Christine a while back. And we got chatting over the phone, and we just kept talking and talking and talking, and I just kept being continuously amazed by everything that she was saying. And we had done the last 6 month yoga session, and then in this new year, we really wanted to give her a space to talk about the why and the power behind yoga. Like, why should we care about yoga? Why should we maybe want to make this part of our daily life and create a practice around yoga? So we are intending to do a series of these workshops. This is going to be one of 4 this year, so be sure to look for others coming up. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and just turn it over to Christine, and you can say what you want about yourself, and I can't wait to hear what you have to say tonight.
Thank you so much, Amy, for that lovely introduction. And yes, actually, I had a yoga therapy client while I was doing my training practicum in order to get my certification that had a double mastectomy and had back in 2014. And she mentioned what a wonderful organization this was and how helpful and supportive it had been for her. And so I just kind of made a mental note to myself to look into your organization after I got my certification complete. And one of the ways I remind myself about organizations I'm interested in is to sign up for the newsletter. And so I went online and I looked at the website and I have 2 different email addresses. One is my serious working email address, and the other one is like newsletters and little things that are of interest, but I don't have to worry about being too professional over there. So I put that email address in and just figured that I would get reminded later on down the road. But Amy reached out immediately after I signed up for the newsletter, and I felt just the power of the caring of your organization, that somebody would enter their email address and express some kind of interest and maybe not be ready to reach out. But the fact that she did go ahead and reach out to me sort of pulled the rug out from under me, because I wasn't really ready to start anything. I wasn't yet certified as a therapist, although I was already and still am a 500-hour yoga teacher. But we decided to go ahead and give it a shot, and it's been one of the most rewarding experiences of my life to bring yoga to you all. And this is particularly tender to me. My aunt has had breast cancer, and I'm a woman. I have a woman's body, and we have our own special resources, but also our own challenges as we move forward in the world. And part of that, what we experience, especially in our early life, often contributes to things that dysregulate us and take us out of our most healthy, harmonious way of viewing and living in the world. And one of those things that I learned about in my yoga therapy training, which I am now and have been for 8 months, I guess, certified, is how to work with our nervous systems. The thing that yoga therapy brings that other modalities don't bring or do bring is it sort of brings together everything. So when we're dealing with trauma, when we're dealing with recovering from a major surgery or an illness, when we have childhood trauma, when we are reaching out for therapy or psychiatry, we're looking into talk therapy, which is top-down therapy. Also, there is somatic therapy where we move and we get into the body. That's bottom-up therapy. There's also compassionate inquiry and internal family systems and art therapy and chiropractic work and massage and self-massage and foam rolling and all of these things, breath work, and all of these things you hear in different pieces from different areas, but that is all encompassed in yoga therapy. We learn about the particular person, we learn about their particular challenges, their histories, and we apply the different principles from all these different modalities so that it's really personalized. And it is also a bottom-up practice because it is crucial for us to feel safe in order to heal. And that's whether we're talking about healing physically or mentally, emotionally, or even spiritually. It is crucial for us to feel safe. And when we have had a trauma in early childhood, or when we've had a trauma such as you all have experienced, where your body literally betrays you and does something beyond your control, you don't even feel safe in your own body. And so that's what this practice is all about. And that is what this nervous system workshop is all about as well, is to help us to feel safe in our bodies. So I have a little PowerPoint prepared, and I'm going to see how well I can make this work. Let me make sure I can share my screen here, Amy.
You should be able to, but if you have any issues, just let me know.
Absolutely.
That looks great on my end.
Wonderful. Oh, I wish I could see all of you still, but I only have a little limited view here. So this is all about resetting our nervous systems. And today we will, whoops. Whoop, it's not advancing. It's a me thing. Bear with me just a moment. I practice, I swear. All right, let's try that again. Okay, are you seeing that now?
Yep.
Okay.
First slide. We can see the
All
first
right, now we've got the agenda. Very good. So the first thing that I would like to do is invite presence today, and I'll get back to that in just a moment. And then we'll go over what the nervous system is, how it functions in our body. Then we'll talk about polyvagal theory, and polyvagal theory is a theory about the nervous system, about our worldview, about how safe we feel in our body. And then I will show how yoga and the polyvagal theory complement and work with one another. And then we'll do a short practice just seated in our chairs, and I'll try to leave time for questions at the end. So the first thing is about inviting presence. One of the very first things that I noticed when I started practicing yoga regularly, within about, I don't know, maybe 6 months it probably took of practicing yoga, I suddenly realized as I was on my mat that I was not busy planning what I was going to eat for lunch or dinner. I wasn't thinking about what my boss said earlier this morning. I wasn't planning the email that I was going to send as soon as I got back from my desk. I realized I was right there in my body without all of these thoughts running around in my head. And that is the practice of yoga, is calming the fluctuations of the mind. When we do that, we stop living in the past, We stop living in the present or in the future, and we begin living in the present. And that is where we can really engage with the world around us the most fully and the most powerfully. So just to take a moment here to kind of just feel into your body, wherever you're sitting, whether you're sitting in a chair and your feet are on the floor, if you're sitting on your couch cross-legged, whatever, you might be reclining with your cat or your dog, maybe. Just feel the bottoms of your feet and feel your legs, the backs of your thighs and your sit bones, and just direct your attention to how they feel, to the solidity of the ground underneath you, to the support of the seat that you are sitting on. Maybe feel the support against your back. And if closing your eyes helps you to go inward a little more, that would be great. Or soften your gaze, maybe. And just really feel what you feel. Invite yourself to be fully in your body. And then just to give you another anchor for just another minute, focus on your breath. Just right there at the end of your nose. Focus on the sensation that the inhale creates. You might notice a little tickling sensation, maybe a little temperature change, a little coolness or a little warmth. Maybe you smell dinner cooking. And as you exhale, notice the sensation of the breath leaving your nostrils. You might be able to even perceive all the little cilia that are there in the nostrils, protecting you from particles. Just for another few breaths, feel your feet on the ground. Feel yourself supported by your chair. And feel your breath at the end of your nostrils. And then I'd like to invite you to take a nice big inhale through your nose and let it go out your mouth with a nice big sigh. And let's do that 2 more times. Just an inhale through the nose. Exhale and let it go. And then last time, let's inhale and reach the arms up. Give a little stretch, wiggle your fingers. And just exhale, let your arms fall down as softly or fast as you like. And then any organic movement you feel your body needs to bring you back here, you can bat open your eyes whenever you're ready. I have this quote here. Seeing unhealthy patterns in your family and deciding that those patterns end with you and will not be passed down to future generations is an extremely brave and powerful decision. The nervous system is a creator of patterns. It is the brain, the spinal cord, and all the peripheral nerves. Everything we memorize, like walking, talking, driving, happens through a neural pathway. It happens through a neural loop. It happens through subconscious programming. Our nervous system memorizes how to talk, our accent, how to tie with shoes, how to sit or stand. It also memorizes patterns or reactions that we have, especially those that are triggered as survival strategies. when we have a scary diagnosis, when we have a big operation, when we have any kind of trauma, big T or little t, we create survival patterns. And in the short term, those can be very beneficial for us as we're adapting to something new and we're learning how to survive with it. But after a while, these patterns can kind of become ingrained and not become beneficial for us anymore. In the Western culture, we call this nervous system memorization or subconscious programming, neural pathways. In yoga, we call this the Sanskrit word samskara. It is a pathway or a groove or a rut, if you will, that we always do the same things over and over again. And to a certain extent, those routines that we have can be very supportive for us and for our nervous systems. But like I said, sometimes, especially when they are created as survival strategies, they eventually don't help us anymore. And I'm talking about things like drinking heavily or smoking or driving too fast or having, codependent relationships or anything like that. The thing, though, that's wonderful about the nervous system is that we have the ability to change those pathways. We have neuroplasticity, they are finding, where we can actually train our bodies and train our nervous systems that we can do things in new, more healthy ways. Let's see, let's move forward here. Whoops, put this down. Oh, now it doesn't want to advance again. Bear with me. I pulled up some notes here, so I'm going to try to do that. I should quit messing with it once I get it started. So one of the first things that we do in yoga therapy is something that we all know. We all know this in our Western culture, that it's good for us to eat well. It's good for us to exercise. It's good for us to get good sleep. We all know these things. But like I said, we get in sort of these pathways or these adaptations, like, for instance, people pleasing. A lot of people, especially people who have had traumatic illnesses, inflammatory disease, different kinds of cancers, are people pleasers. And the reason that that's an issue is because they tend to people please and take care of everybody but themselves. And that can become a habit. That can become a survival strategy. That can become an adaptation for how we are in the world. So making any kind of change, while it is definitely possible, is hard. I'm just going to say it. It's hard. If you are used to staying up until 2 o'clock in the morning because that's the only quiet time you have at night, or if you are used to eating something that you know is not great for you, or if you're used to not drinking very much, it's hard to change those habits. But it is really important for us to be able to do these things because that does support a healthy nervous system. And as we'll see later on, the nervous system affects every single other system in our body. So to support these things, we do need deep rest. We do need hydration. We do need to get our heart rate up. We need to be outside and get the air on our skin, get some kind of nature. We need healthy nourishment. We need healthy elimination. And this is on here because so many people that I deal with in my field and have experienced myself is constipation or diarrhea. Why is that the thing? Because our nervous system is directly connected to our digestive system. It's one of the very first things that we notice when something's coming up for us is something's happening in our digestion. So this is a wonderful messenger for us as well. And then not just eliminating poop and pee, but also getting rid of things that no longer serve you. Maybe having a good cry or a good laugh might be eliminating something. And then right brain, doing something creative. We are here to create. We are creating our own lives every minute of every single day, and nurturing that sense of creativity, whether it's music or art or storytelling or crocheting, whatever it might be. Nurturing that right brain part of you helps to get you more connected to yourself. And you kind of have to be connected to yourself in order to do these things on the body dashboard. It takes bravery in our Western culture, especially to do self-care, to prioritize yourself. Other people might even call you selfish for taking care of yourself or for saying no. Sometimes taking care of yourself, sometimes that elimination is saying no. So I encourage you, like I said, we all know it's definitely easier said than done, but if there is one thing, if there is 5 more minutes of sleep you can give yourself, if there is one more glass of water a day that you can drink, if there's 1 minute you can step outside onto your back porch and breathe in some fresh air, and then make it a daily habit, that's how we change those neural pathways. That's how we build new neural pathways, new samskaras that are now healthier for us, one day at a time, making it part of our healthy routine. So, getting into the nervous system, we have this big overarching thing we call the autonomic nervous system, which basically means these are things that are automatic. We don't have to think about beating our heart. We don't have to think about breathing. We don't have to think about digesting or secreting hormones or insulin or any of these things. We automatically do it. The one thing that we can do that the autonomic nervous system does take care of for us is breathing. And breathing is our message way from ourselves to the outside world. And it's also a message from ourselves to our inside world. And we'll get more into breathing as we move forward. But there's basically polyvagal theory states that we have 3 states of our nervous system. So we're pretty familiar with fight or flight, sympathetic nervous system, relax and restore, parasympathetic nervous system. But it kind of branches off even more than that. So our sympathetic nervous system is our activated stress response, that fight or flight. It is, while we think about stress as being bad for us and being in fight or flight is bad, it actually is our biological imperative for survival that we be able to take care of ourselves. So we want the fight or flight function to be available if we have to move our car really quick on the highway, or to avoid a kid out in the road or anything like that. So we want to be able to have that functioning. When we have that stress response, our heart rate increases, our blood pressure, breathing, our muscles all contract, our joints contract. Everything that's digesting or sleeping or procreating, all of that stuff kind of goes to the back burner whenever we're meeting a stress, because all of those resources are going to be able to run or fight. And then we can kind of get into this state where we're immobilized in this parasympathetic or the sympathetic nervous system response, where we have this constant state of low-grade stress. So our nervous system was developed eons ago when we were having to live out in the wild, sharing resources with wild animals. Maybe we had a bear we had to run away from, or some other group of people that were trying to get resources from us. We had to be able to meet these threats, and then we had to be able to discharge that energy. And usually if you're running away from a bear, you get away or something else happens, but eventually the threat is over. But when your job is your constant stressor, when every email you open, when every time the phone rings or you hear that particular text happens, or the weather's really bad and you have to think about driving in it, or maybe you have to drive for an hour each way to get to work, and you're constantly at this state of low grade stress, that's where we end up running into trouble. That's where we end up getting stuck. That's where too much adrenaline causes that hypertension, palpitations, shortness of breath, hyperglycemia, because we're secreting sugar to meet that stress response. That the adrenaline is to meet the short-term response. Then we've got cortisol, which also suppresses our immune system and keeps that blood sugar and blood pressure increased, just in case there might be another threat. So the body secretes that adrenaline to meet the initial threat. The initial threat's over, but that cortisol is going to stay high for a while because we're going to be on alert. Just like an antelope that maybe perceives a lion out in the wild, the lion chases them, they run away, they get away scot-free. The lion's finally gone. They stay on high alert for a while before they go back to chomping on grass, without a care in the world. And our bodies react the same way. Then we have the parasympathetic nervous system. When it's healthy, when it's regulated, that's our ventral vagal response. That's when we can relax. That's when our immune system is online, our digestive system is online, our elimination system, our respiratory system, our blood pressure, everything is online. Our hormones are balanced. We can sleep really well because we're not meeting any kind of threat. If we have, now the other aspect of the parasympathetic nervous system is the dorsal vagal. Now we've got fight and flight, that's a stress response. Another one is freeze or fawn. So if you are out in the wild and there's a lion and you can run fast enough, you will run. If you can fight, you will fight. If you can't do either of those things, you'll curl up in a little ball and you'll play dead. That's freezing. That's a perfectly acceptable way to handle a stress when you're out in the wild. But in our Western culture, it's also how we might handle that. Think about a young child. You're with your parents and maybe they're fighting, or maybe your dad is yelling at you or something like that is happening. You can't fight. You can't really run because you're a kid and you can't take care of yourself. So what do? You freeze, you shut down. And they're seeing a lot of this is, I'm getting off onto a tangent, but ADD is now being looked at as maybe a stress response, freezing and fawning, which is like trying to make everything okay, trying to calm everybody down. You're still not taking care of yourself. You're still in this heightened cortisol level because you want to keep everybody calm. So, like I said earlier, how safe we feel is crucial to our physical health, our mental health, and our happiness. We have to feel safe in our body in order to have this balanced nervous system. And those neuroreceptors in our nervous system, they react instantly. This is not like you can say, okay, I've assessed the situation and I am going to fight. Or, okay, I know I can outrun this guy, I'm gonna run. Or I think maybe the best plan is to freeze. It's not like that. It's not a conscious decision. It is the survival level of our limbic nervous system that says, this is what's happening, this is what we're doing. And the nervous system just does it for you. Again, sympathetic nervous system, primitive, biological, meant to protect us. It can become habitual and harmful. Think about somebody who's in fight mode a lot. You might see this perhaps in a boss or a parent or a spouse, somebody who's constantly snapping, somebody who flies off the handle at the drop of a hat, somebody whose reactions are way beyond what the situation demands. Or maybe you're the person who, when you're in a fight, you're like, I'm out of here. I am out the door. I am gonna go to my sister's house. Or maybe you're the person who just freezes and shuts down or tries to people please. This can become habitual and harmful because you're neglecting yourself when you're constantly in one of these modes of stress response. And our bodies are only meant to have these short bursts of stress. Like I said, if we're out in the wild and we've got a threat, or if we're driving our car and we need to avoid somebody on a bicycle, that's when our nervous system, that's when that stress response comes in handy. But we're not meant to be at this constant state of low grade stress, and it will affect all of our body systems. Dr. Gabor Mate is the writer of books such as The Body Says No. He's also an author of a book on ADHD, ADHD, and I can't remember the title of that one. And most recently, The Myth of Normal. And he says that situational factors that contribute to stress are uncertainty, conflict, lack of information, and loss of control. Isn't that what happens when you have a breast cancer diagnosis? Isn't that what happens when you're a human being on the face of this planet? Aren't we all to some degree facing uncertainty, conflict, lack of information, and loss of control? And this whole book that Gabor Mate, which I cannot recommend highly enough, talks about how we're, the bigger picture right now, talking about mental health and drug addiction and gun use and all of these things. If the whole culture is existing with uncertainty, conflict, lack of information, and loss of control, then perhaps that's one of the reasons that we have such an upset in our culture today, why we have so many issues, why we have so many children and so many people that are unhoused. And I think a lot of it comes down to how much stress everybody is under. But we do have the parasympathetic nervous system. And like I said, we can use a lot of different ways, our breath among them, to help us to bring that parasympathetic nervous system on board. So when we are opening that stressful email, maybe instead of just habitually going, oh my gosh, I know it's going to be terrible, and opening the email, maybe we do a practice. Maybe we feel our feet on the ground. Maybe we take a deep breath. Maybe we go outside and feel the sun on our face. Maybe we do something to help us come back to our parasympathetic nervous system. And like I said earlier, the more we do these things, the more power they have and the more they can become that new neural pathway. The parasympathetic nervous system is, and polyvagal theory, like we talked about earlier, is based on the vagus nerve and vagal tone. The vagus nerve is the longest nerve in the body. It innervates from our brain all the way through all the other organs in our body and to all of our digestive and sex organs. It controls the digestion, the heart rate, the immune system. And it is that gut-brain connection. When people talk about the brain in the gut, this is what they're talking about. And this pathway, this connection, 80% or more of the information goes from the gut up to the brain. So the gut is kind of telling our brain what's going on in the system down here. And again, this is another reason yoga is very powerful with dealing with our immune system, our nervous system, and all the other issues that we have around physical, mental, and emotional health, is because it's bottom up. We start in the body. We do things that move the body. We talk about like exercises like building strong abs or something like that. In yoga, we do things where we compress the abdomen or we do some gentle twisting so that we're not just building up strong abs, but we're actually massaging those internal organs. We're helping to move those things through the intestines. We're helping to massage the lymphatic system and the lymph nodes glands and the lymphatic passageways that live in our abdomen when we do those kinds of movements. And even when we're breathing, we're massaging from the inside out. And this vagal nerve, we can tone just like those abdominal muscles by breathing, by doing intentional movements that touch our bodies in different ways, and by doing other practices that support vagal tone. And I'll get to that also. So many of you might have heard of heart rate variability. That is basically the ability of our vagal tone to be resilient. So when we practice yoga on the mat, we do something, maybe we do some planks or some sun salutations. We do some standing postures that are really foundational and building balance, something that might get our heart rate up. And then we bring it back down. We come back to the breath, we slow it down, and then maybe we bring it up again, and then we bring it down again. So we're actually training our nervous system. I can be activated, and then I can come back to neutrality. And so this is kind of how we titrate in talk therapy or other kinds of therapy. We just do a little bit at a time. So we're doing a little bit at a time, activating and then calming the nervous system. Low vagal tone is observed again in digestive disorders and inflammatory disease. That heart rate variability might be pretty low if you have that as well. And then to deepen your vagal tone, to strengthen it, the thing about yoga versus other kinds of physical exercise is that we're really intentional about it. We bring your attention to how does it feel as you rock from side to side, massaging your back body against the ground. How does it feel to expand your breath into your belly and then expand your breath into your heart? What if you do a little bit of self-massage? Notice how good that feels. Savor this experience. Look for the parts that make you go, ah. And then when you recognize those things on your yoga mat, you can more easily recognize those things off your yoga mat. Those little parts of your life that you can savor, like a warm cup of tea first thing in the morning, or your cat sitting on your lap, or opening up a brand new book, or something like that, that just feeds you and nourishes you down to your spirit. That right brain activity also does this. Other things to support the vagus nerve, because the vagus nerve comes from the brain all the way down to the digestive system and back, it has to go through the neck, and it innervates right here behind the ears. So things that cause any kind of vibration or movement in the throat physically tone that vagal nerve. Humming, singing, chanting like we do in yoga, gargling, doing asana practices or yoga postures where we tuck the chin and then open up the throat, physically moving the vagus nerve, which is also, of course, where the thyroid is. So it's thought that some movement here actually massages the thyroid. Pranayama practices, which is breathing practices in yoga. And then, like I said, focusing on the glimmers off and on your mat, things that spark joy. As biological creatures, we are physically designed for survival. That's what the whole fight-flight system is for. And because of that, we are kind of biased to have this negativity bias. We're always looking for the threat. And that's how we are designed to be, because we want to protect ourselves. So it does take will and desire and a decision and a choice to focus on the things in our lives that are positive. And I'm not saying that there's not negative things. There are so many things out in this world, in your lives, in the lives of people we love and care about, that are not fun. And you can't just say, oh, just look at the silver lining. I mean, you know, nobody wants to hear that. Or, oh, just take a deep breath. It doesn't, it's not helpful for anybody. It's just going to piss somebody off, probably. But taking a deep breath really does help. Focusing on the positive things really does help. Acknowledging what's going on that's difficult in our lives, being present with it, not ruminating on it, not practicing all these what ifs, but being present with your current experience and feeling safe in this present moment and being able to acknowledge what's difficult while still being able to acknowledge what's positive can be so supportive for your overall health, not just your nervous system. And this is kind of the polyvagal theory in a diagram. And if you all want me to share this PowerPoint, it's only 10 slides. I'm more than happy to email it along over to Amy. This is not my diagram. I actually did borrow it from Stephen Porges, who is the who actually came up with the whole polyvagal theory. The 4 R's that we can do, like I said, recognize, be present, accept the current situation, respect what's going on in your body, and then regulate, deep breathing, movement, chanting, singing, dancing, whatever feeds you, whatever feeds your soul, and then restore, taking care of yourself, doing the things that support yourself, drinking plenty of water, eating good food, all of those things. So this is kind of the whole thing like I laid out before, where we've got the sympathetic nervous system, where we've got the fight or flight. When you're in the dorsal vagal parasympathetic nervous system, that's where we're in freeze or fawn mode. You'll see that in dissociation, people who say they just feel numb, depression, helplessness, shut down. This is where depression is. This is where that rumination and focusing on the past is. And then we've got that sympathetic response. Like I said, the rage and the anger and people who are always frustrated and irritated, or the fight, panic, running away, anxiety, constant worrying. And then we have the ventral vagal, where we feel safe, we feel connected to ourselves, we feel connected to our community. Another reason this group is really beneficial for one another here is your support of one another. That's a basic human need. And that's where we can find joy and being present and being compassionate to ourselves as well as to other people, not just to other people, but as well as to ourselves. And in yoga, thousands of years ago, before polyvagal theory, before Western culture decided this was even thing, they had the gunas. And this was tamas, rajas, and sattva. And so this freeze or dorsal vagal response is tamasic. And when it is balanced, that means we're stable, we're grounded. When it's unbalanced, we're stagnant or stuck. And then we have rajasic, which is that person that's always activated. And when it's balanced and healthy, then we're mobile, we're ready to move, we're healthy and doing things and getting things done. But when it's not balanced, then it's anxiety. And sattva is that sattvic kind of equanimity that we all want to have, that ventral vagal response where we experience equanimity. We can be balanced. We can know that the highs come and the lows come, but at the end of the day, I'm sattvic. I know that this too shall pass kind of thing, and I will meet it with presence and with my full and complete self. But we can get a little disembodied or a little up in our heads when we aren't balanced in that area. And so then I would like to lead us in a little practice here for a nervous system reset, a few things that you can take away from this workshop that maybe 1 or 2 of them might feel good in your body and you might want to practice every now and then. Kaki pranayama, that's Sanskrit for pursed lip breathing. And then we'll ground the body again, which is basically feeling your feet on the ground, feeling your sit bones in your chair. Brahmari breath or Brahmari pranayama is bee breath or humming, which I mentioned earlier is really great for vagal tone and is an ancient yogic practice. Even before polyvagal theory said, oh, you should do humming, the ancient yogis were going, Om, and they knew that that was good for us way back when. And then just a little self-compassion meditation. So if you would like to join me, feel free to come to a comfortable, strong seat. Whatever that is, you might be laying down on your bed. If you're driving in your car and listening to the recording, please don't close your eyes, but just notice your feet on the floor. Notice your chair or whatever support you're sitting on. Notice where it's touching your body. Your legs, your glutes, your back. Notice where your hands are resting. And if you feel safe to do so, close your eyes. And just begin again to notice your breath right there at the ends of your nostrils. Relax your jaw and soften your shoulders. And imagine the skin of your forehead just becoming very smooth and soft. And you might notice where in your body you're expanding as you inhale. Maybe your belly, maybe your chest, maybe against the back of your chair. And you might notice one more thing, one more place you could soften as you exhale. And if you notice that your breath is fast or high in your chest, that might be an indication to you from your nervous system that you're a little activated or carrying a little stress. And we just accept that for what it is without changing it. We just acknowledge our nervous system's intelligence in communicating that to us. And then if it feels good to you, you might decide to bring your breath a little deeper into your belly. Maybe begin to slow it down. And then come back to your sensation at the breath at the nose. And let's take a nice inhale through the nose. And when next we exhale, let's exhale through pursed lips as if you're exhaling through a straw. So it'll look like this. Inhale through the nose, purse the lips, and inhale through the nose. Open the lips, purse them like a straw, and slowly exhale. Let's do that together 3 more times. Inhale through the nose. Exhale through pursed lips. And just continue to feel your feet on the ground. Commit to those soft shoulders and that relaxed jaw. And after you've found those 3 breaths, just come back to your regular breath. And just notice what you notice, the quality of your breath, the quality of your thoughts. And again, come back to your body, feeling your feet, your legs, your back, all the places where you're supported, where you are present in this here and now moment. And then we'll practice a few rounds of Brahmari breath. There's a lot of different ways to do this breath, but my favorite involves interlacing the fingers and bringing them to the top of the head. And when you're here, you might just gently lift the crown of your head into your hands and sort of draw your elbows back and let your shoulders relax away from your ears so that your heart is lifted. We're going to inhale through the nose, and as we exhale, we'll hum out the mouth with a humming sound. So it'll be like, mm. And when you do, just let it be nice and slow, maybe that nice deep belly breath, and just notice where you feel sensation in your body as you hum. And we'll do that here 3 times. So let's inhale through the nose and then exhale with a hum. Mm. Just let it taper off. And then again, inhale. And again, notice what you feel, where you feel sensation. One final time here. And then we'll take the hands off the head and bring them down to the low belly. Maybe your thumbs are kind of resting above your belly button, and you might interlace your fingers here, or just let the fingers come apart and hold yourself here with an attitude of tenderness and gentleness, holding your internal organs and your lymphatic system in your hands. And we'll do that Brahmari breath 3 more times here, inhaling through the nose, exhaling with a hum. And again, as you exhale, just let it be gentle and soft and slow. Look for any sensations that you feel in your body, just noticing what's happening in the present moment and using those sensations to keep you anchored here. So let's inhale together to prepare. Mm. 2 more times here, holding the belly. Mm. Mm. Just come back to your regular breath. And then the last place that we'll practice this is we'll take our 2 palms together. And let's just begin to rub the palms, just sort of warming up the hands. I don't know if everybody on this webinar, this workshop is here in Oregon, but we're experiencing a pretty cold snap. So Just imagine your hands are cold, or maybe you don't have to imagine. And we'll just create a little bit of heat. Feel where your fingers are maybe warm and feel where they're cold. And maybe notice if your shoulders have crept up here and see if you can relax them down. Perhaps lifting your heart and again, feeling into your feet. And we'll just stay with this for another 30 seconds or so, maybe longer than you think you would want to do this. And we'll just keep going. And we'll keep going, just creating heat within the self. And then we'll bring the hands apart and we'll bring them to rest right here, just underneath the collarbones. And you might be able to feel the heat from your hands onto your chest, onto your heart center. Maybe you might be able to detect the beating of your heart under your hands, or the lifting of your heart as you breathe. And we'll practice Brahmari breath here 3 more times, just feeling what you feel, letting any vibrations or tingling expand, letting yourself savor the sensations. Let's inhale together to prepare. Just that taper off. Come back to your regular breath. And let your elbows rest down. And just hold yourself here, feeling tenderness between your palms and your heart. Offering yourself some compassion for the hero's journey that you are all on. Offering yourself gratitude for showing up for yourself, for being willing to do some new things and hear some new, maybe, information. And gratitude to yourself and to everyone who is here with you tonight. And if you like, you can release your hands to your lap, or maybe join me in bringing your palms together. And I invite you to bring your thumbs up to your forehead. In yoga, this is our third eye chakra. It is also where our pituitary and pineal glands live. So we honor this place here, that you would have peace in your thoughts. And then we bring our thumbs to our lips, which is our throat chakra, our area of communication, and also where our thyroid lives, that you would have peace in your words. And then down to your beautiful hearts, which is where the thymus gland lives, and also the heart chakra, where we give and receive love, that you would have peace in your hearts. And in the tradition of yoga, the light and the love that is within me honors that same light and love that is within each of you. Namaste. One final thing I would like to come back to is I had mentioned that quote about seeing patterns in our lives and deciding that those patterns end with us. And like I said, the nervous system is patterns. This is where we store how we do things. And we also not just regulate our own nervous systems, but the nervous systems of those we're around. You may have noticed that when you're with a certain person, that you feel safe and calm and at ease. And when you're with another person, maybe you don't feel safe or you just can't get away fast enough. And when we are with people, and I'm kind of in a unique position right now because I had two granddaughters born last year. Unexpectedly, didn't think either of my kids were going to have kids. And then boom, boom, they both did. And watching how their moms interact with them, I know that those babies at this very early developmental stage are learning how to regulate their nervous systems based on their caregivers. In this instance, their moms, but maybe the caregivers might be the dads or grandmas or someone else. So we learn those patterns from one another at a very early age. And if there is childhood trauma, whether it was, it could be bad parenting, certainly, but it could just be a busy mom that has to work 3 jobs and maybe she just can't pay attention. Children develop these survival strategies that end up living in their nervous systems because they become habitual. So I strongly believe that taking these steps to regulate ourselves has ripple effects. It has ripple effects to our children, to our significant others, to the people we work with, to the people we play with, to the people we share with. So if you take nothing else from this, just making your presence a safe space for others to be around is a very brave and powerful decision. And that's about all I got for you. If anybody has any specific questions, I would be happy to talk more on any of this. If there are no questions, I could go on for days and days because I'm just fascinated by this material. But yeah, and I can see there's some chats down here, so maybe there are questions in here. I don't know, Amy, if you're reading through those or if you have anything that came up for you.
I mean, I actually put a couple of questions in there myself.
Oh, okay,
So
great.
I'll start with those, and if anybody else, has anything come to mind, you can pop in or put it in the chat. When you were talking about the, habituation of what we tend to do or where we tend to sit with anxiety or depression or, kind of having things more equalized, I guess. I was just curious, like, it seems like when I think about people I know, you tend to kind of habituate in one of those areas versus another. Is that true? Is that?
Yes, it can be all at different, like in different situations.
Hmm.
You might have a fight response with your significant other, but a freeze fawn response with your mother. That could definitely happen. Or maybe you're a very activated person and you're constantly irritated and frustrated, and everybody around you is stupid, and these people don't drive fast enough, and it's just the way you, like I said, it's our worldview. This is how we see the world. This is how safe we feel in our bodies. So you might have a particular level of that polyvagal graph that you appear on pretty habitually, or you might have certain responses that you have in certain situations. And you can always come back to that. Maybe I'll see if I can share one slide. Let's see if I can from the current slide. Whoop, no, I gotta escape first. This one is the one I would like to show. And then I gotta come back to share. All right, so this one here, we might be, am I sharing the screen with the little, okay.
Yes.
So we might be in that ventral vagal bottom level parasympathetic balanced response most of the time, but then we kind of, like that little squiggly line shows, we sort of border. We're balanced, we're activated, we're balanced, we're activated, oh, something really big happened, we're really activated, we're so activated now that we're frozen. So it can be any combination. But you probably have seen in people around you, like, for instance, I have a nephew who I know has had a lot of childhood trauma, and I know he is stuck in dorsal vagal. He's a 30-year-old kid living with his mom, and he's frozen. He's stuck. He's in a rut. He's depressed. He's hopeless. He doesn't see any change happening in his life. He's his mother's caregiver, and I feel really sad for him. And I'm sure there are people in your lives like that you can see that are probably really heavily stuck in one area or another. But the thing about polyvagal theory and working to regulate ourselves is when we know this stuff and we can identify, oh, I am kind of in this freeze mode. I've been saying I was going to do something and I'm just kind of stuck here. I haven't been doing it. Why am I not doing it? And instead of shaming ourselves and saying, oh man, I'm just never going to do it, I'm never going to do it, we can say, well, maybe today, just this morning, I'm going to practice 3 rounds of Brahmari breath before I get out of bed in the morning. Just every day. I'm just going to do that. I'm just going to add this one thing. And then maybe you might feel like, well, this feels pretty good. Maybe I'll just have an extra glass of water. And so we can begin to venture into that social engagement ventral vagal area. Little by little, step by step, we create new neural pathways every time we add one of these healthy practices. That probably over explains that, but yeah.
No, that was wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll stop sharing there.
There was another question that came in that was just asking, like, in your opinion, is it good to also talk about things or better to kind of just try to work through it on your own using yoga and these breathing techniques and things?
Well, that's the wonderful thing about yoga therapy, because it's all important. I think there is a place for every practice, whether it's talk therapy or somatic therapy like body work, like yoga, breathing practices, meditation, maybe even medication at some point. If you're really heavily in depression or tamasic stage, if you're really activated and you're so anxious that you cannot sleep, maybe medication is necessary to get those symptoms under control before you can even begin to start thinking about taking a walk for 5 minutes or drinking an extra glass of water or writing in your journal for 5 minutes or whatever healthy routine you can have. When I first came to a regular yoga practice, I had, among other things, I have always, since I was 12 years old, broken out in hives whenever I got activated. And it wasn't really recognized as any kind of stress response when I was a kid. It was just like, slap some mud on it and get back to work, sort of thing, because that's how we did things in my family. We just got back to work. That's how we did it. And I had hives, I had this idiopathic facial swelling. So I'd be in a meeting and I'd get stressed out and just part of my face would swell up. I had a bunch of dental issues. I had insomnia. I had digestive issues. I ended up getting a new job, which is where I started doing yoga and getting new health insurance. And I luckily got on some antihistamines and some anti-anxiety medication to help get those symptoms under control. And then after about a year, I have to be honest, after about a year of regular yoga practice, I started feeling more present in my body. I started feeling more safe in my body. And gradually I started weaning myself off the antihistamines with the guidance of my doctor, just to see, because was feeling so good in myself and I hadn't had any symptoms. Is it time? Am I safe enough to come off of these? And now I'm not on any of those medications. It has been 8 years since I started a regular everyday yoga practice and really focusing on this as a pathway to healing for me. But yeah, and I also had a therapist that I went and talked to. Luckily, I work for the state and I have really great health insurance. So, medication, talk therapy, somatic therapy, again, it's kind of what works for you. Everybody is different. We're all wired differently. And that's kind of what healing is becoming whole within yourself. It's acknowledging yourself. It's being connected to yourself. It's learning how to listen to yourself. Some of us are so disconnected from who we are and so ingrained to people please that when somebody asks us what we like to do or where we want to eat or what we want to do when we grow up, we're like, I don't know. I'm so busy taking care of everybody else. I have no connection to myself or what I really want to do. And that's what healing is. Healing is becoming whole. It's becoming connected to yourself. So listening to your own intuition, that third eye chakra, listening to your intuition and saying, I really need to talk this out. Or I really just need to move, or I really just need to get up and pee, whatever it is that you need to do, stop putting yourself aside and start paying attention to yourself. And then you'll get what you need. But even in yoga therapy, more often a yoga therapy session begins with a check-in. How are you doing? What's showing up in your life? What's going on for you? How can I help you today? What are you feeling in my body, or what are you feeling in your body is kind of where we start to diverge. Where are you feeling activated? Are you feeling palpitations? Is your breathing fast? So we look at the whole body, the whole system, the whole level, body, mind, spirit, everything, emotions, they all come into play in yoga therapy.
There was one more question, Christine, which was someone was asking if you had ever had a client or known someone whose nervous system was so shot and far gone that they were having a tingling sensation when they were stressed out or activated.
Sure, I've heard of tingling, and that could be a little bit of numbness also. It could be a little bit of energy. In yoga, I mentioned breath practices are called pranayama. Prana is breath or also life force, energy. It's our vitality. It's our sense of aliveness. And so when you're feeling activated, you may notice the feeling of adrenaline or cortisol rushing from your belly out to your hands. That's because the blood shunts from the belly where we do all of our digesting so that it can meet that threat. So that might show up as tingling as well. And that's kind of why the digestive system goes offline, is because everything's out in our extremities so that we can meet this particular threat. So yeah, you may feel any number of kind of physical symptoms when you're stressed out like that. But you can get to the point too where your adrenal, where you're overactivated so much, your adrenal glands are basically shot. Even your cortisol gets shot. You might notice sometimes inflammatory diseases or physical inflammation that happens in the body. Doctors will give you a prescription or an injection of some kind of steroid. What is steroid? Steroid is a stress hormone. And so that's because now we're not getting enough adrenaline or cortisol to meet our needs. And when that happens, our bodies are so amazing and wonderful and so programmed for survival that the estrogen and progesterone in our bodies say, oh, there's a threat and there's not enough adrenaline or cortisol, but we can convert and make some more of that stuff for you. And so that's why our hormones go offline, especially, you know, when we're in perimenopause and menopause, and maybe even throughout your life. We're not meant to have painful, stressful, long periods, but if you did, or no period at all, it could be because you were so overwhelmingly stressed out that your adrenal glands and your cortisol levels got so overwhelmed that your sex hormones started have to picking up the slack.
Thank you so much for expanding on all the questions, Christine. There's just one more. Well, actually, there's a comment, which was someone was saying um, they felt like they now better understand why when they're stressed out, they might start yawning or burping, and it's their body's way of sort of trying to calm them down. And I was going to ask too about the yawning because I had read that at some point to kind of like try to almost force yourself into a yawn can be another way to exercise that parasympathetic nerve. Is that right?
Absolutely, 100%. And I'll actually, in a yoga practice, ask people to just fake a yawn. Just maybe do that 2 or 3 or 4 times. And one, you probably will trigger a real yawn. And two, you might even trigger a real yawn from the people around you when you do that because of our level of empathy that we have. It's totally normal. You might notice when your dog yawns, you might yawn. And when you yawn, your dog might yawn, but your cat doesn't care if you yawn because they don't have any empathy. But yes, that's very true because we're inviting more oxygen into the body. We're exercising that base of the throat area when we're opening up and we're expanding the back of the throat like that. And that does stimulate the vagal nerve. So it might be a way to A, activate the vagal nerve and bring some vagal tone, and B, be an indication that your parasympathetic nervous system is coming back on board. So it's that two-way communication that we have. For sure. And other things, I would love to hear if anybody has any other things that they, if we're done with questions, if anybody has any suggestions of things that they do that support vagal tone or support focusing on the glimmers in their lives. I mean, we can talk a lot about all the things that are going wrong for us. We can focus on that negativity bias, or we can use this time to focus on those things that support us and make us feel healthy. And maybe you have something to share that might help out one of your sisters here.
There was just one more question,
Sure,
and
sure.
it just was someone was asking if there was a way to test what your baseline is for your own nervous system response.
You can test for your heart rate variability. Um, I've got my computer open right now. I've had mine tested at a training that I did, and it seemed like they had a special, like a stopwatch or something. Uh, Heart rate variability. Oh, here we go. Yeah, I think you'd probably have to have like a nurse practitioner or somebody test that for you. But if you ask them to test your heart rate variability, then yes, definitely they can let you know. And you can Google too, what's a good heart rate variability. I don't have a, there we go. It's traditionally measured with an EKG. Here we go. You can get a measure of your HRV, heart rate variability, at home using a fitness tracker or a smartwatch. There's no standard recommended range, but you can consider discussing it with your doctor. So again, that's how quickly your heart rate bounces back after a threat. So if you're feeling a threat, real or imagined, by the way. It doesn't matter if it's real or imagined, your nervous system will respond the same way. It's like if you're at home and you don't expect anybody else to be there, and you turn a corner and there's your kid and you're like, ah, your body responds immediately. You feel your heart rate go up, you feel a little warmer all of a sudden. It takes a while for you to settle down. So whether it's a real threat or not, your body will respond the same way, even if it's an imaginary threat or a memory, which is where things like PTSD come in. So that heart rate variability is, okay, I get activated, there's my kid. Ah! How quickly does my heart rate come down? How fast do I recover? That's what the heart rate variability is. And if your heart rate variability is not balanced and not healthy, and it tends to stay elevated after that threat, that's then where hypertension comes in, when you got, that kind of thing. So it's all incredibly connected. Like I said, our nervous system kind of sets the stage for how well our immune system functions. If you're constantly under threat, you're not repairing things, you're not healing things, you're not sleeping well, you're not digesting things well. So just being able to take this information and use it to just be able to start calming your nervous system will support all the other systems of your body.
Thank you, Christine. We do have about 5 minutes if anybody wants to share on what Christine was mentioning with glimmers or ways that you've used for calming your nervous system down. Feel free to just chime in, unmute, and talk is fine.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So the yawning, like as soon as I start deep breathing, I'm constantly yawning and tears are in my eyes, which is kind of annoying. And I'm assuming that that yawning means that I'm not, like, my idea is that if I could relax myself enough, I would stop yawning. Is that true, or is that just a way of beating up on myself?
It's just a way of beating up on yourself.
Okay, thank you.
It's just a way to judge yourself. And, I can't tell you how many times people have said to me, I should be farther along than this. I know all this stuff. I should be doing this by now. It's our, like I said, it's a negativity bias. We look for it even in ourselves. Obviously, it's my fault. I'm doing something wrong. This signifies that there's something wrong with me. All you can tell yourself really is that, wow, my body obviously needed some oxygen. And you're relaxing your jaw when you do that. Your vagal nerve is saying, oh, I needed that. Thank you for seeing me. That's what so many of the issues that we have in our bodies, in our digestions, in our responses, are messages from our bodies trying to get our attention. And I often say yoga helps us to hear the whispers so we don't have to listen to the screams. When you get in touch with yourself, in touch with your body, when you begin to accept instead of judge yourself for your responses, then you can begin to really experience some healing. But it does take time. It's not a wonder pill, unfortunately, and we all would love to just have that wonderful pill that we could take. It is a decision. Yoga isn't just the postures on the mat or in the chair. It's not just the breathing. It's not just the mindfulness. It's all of it. And it is in its very definition, yoga is the union of body, mind, and spirit. And it's being connected with yourself. It's learning to listen to yourself. And we, as women especially, kind of feel like we always have to be taking care of everybody around us. And there's almost a little bit of shame or guilt in doing things that are termed self-care. And we kind of get that little rolling your eyes, doing your self-care. When I go get a massage, I feel a little hedonistic. No, you're taking care of yourself. And it's time that we support each other in taking care of ourselves, and we support ourselves in taking care of ourselves. And every time you make a decision to do something that is caring for yourself, you begin to develop that trusting relationship with your own body, with your own self. You begin to honor and respect yourself instead of judging yourself.
Thank you so much, Christine. I just can't express enough the gratitude that I have and Breast Friends has for all the time you have given to us and everyone who's part of Breast Friends. You're a tremendous wealth of information and you just care so deeply. And I think we can all feel that coming through the screen. I look forward to an in-person thing with you at some point.
I do too. I'm very
Yes,
excited to get
yeah.
together with you all. And if this goes over well, I'd be more than happy to come present again on another aspect of how yoga can support us in our healing journeys, in all the different ways that we can use it in our lives. Yeah. And thank you so much for inviting me to be here and for allowing me to come in and share this. I'm really, really passionate about it because I strongly believe that yoga has saved my life. And if not my very life, it has improved, even if I weren't dead from the practices that I had before. Yoga has improved my life in so many different ways, that I just can't help but share it. And so letting me come and talk with you all about it, I really appreciate your time and your interest. I will, if you like, Amy, I'll send these slides over. My contact information is on the last slide. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have any other questions. And of course, to practice with me live on Zoom on Fridays at noon through the end of June.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's about. Like I said, I'm a yoga junkie, I'm a nervous system junkie, and I could talk about this stuff for days and days. So I will give you back the floor, Amy. Thank you again, everyone, so much for being here.